Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It is G here. I'm going to get right into talking about these evil white men and these brown women that are married and seemingly, I guess, love them. Guys, subscribe to my channel and let's talk about Priscilla Chan, the wife of Mark Zuckerberg, and Usha Vance, the wife of JD Vance.
Drama queen, you're in the right place. Uh-oh. Whoa. Ouch.
Now, I know we have a lot of conversation about interracial relationships, especially with Black women and white men, and how do you start to understand whether or not your partner is racist? This is a constant concern from a lot of Black women when they decide to date out. When we start looking at some examples, not all, but some examples of other women of color in relationships with white men, it can look very, very problematic, more problematic than we are used to. The situation right now in this example of talking about JD Vance, who is America's vice president, a white nationalist, anti-immigrant, anti-Black, anti-woman. How could a Hindu woman, child of immigrants, be married to a man who is trying to basically push every immigrant in the United States to another country? I mean, he's pretty dang on evil. I don't know if you guys realized, when he was here in Europe, he did a speech at the Munich Security Conference, basically threatening Europe. Europe, in turn, is understanding that it needs to start distancing itself from the United States, as well as building a military that maybe something that they have to use against what is looking like a former ally, the United States, to a lot of countries right now. And when we look at these relationships and these interpersonal things, and you look at women who are with men who are attacking women's rights, who are attacking the foundation of so many things that these women represent, how does it make sense? Both these women are educated, highly educated, very smart. Usha Vance is a lawyer, right? She is also child of immigrants. Priscilla Chan, the wife of Mark Zuckerberg, is a pediatrician. And I know that Mark Zuckerberg is not a politician. Technically, he's not a politician. However, he is a part of the tech oligarchy that is trying to take control in the United States. And he's used his influence and power and his financial influence in politics to do harm. They support a government that is anti-immigrant. Priscilla Chan's family, her parents, actually escaped from Vietnam by boat. They escaped from Vietnam. And I have a really close friend who was a child when her parents escaped from Vietnam as well. And she was like 9 or 10 years old, escaped by boat from Vietnam, and came to the United States. And Priscilla Chan's family also did very well for themselves when they came to the United States. Now, I think that one of the things that we have to pay attention to is specifically to these type of women who are Asian and how they see hierarchies in the world, and how they see it's okay to do certain things as long as it gets you power and you think that it's justifiable or you're right in some sort of way. And a lot of times we align these kind of values with like white women and not so much women of color. But there are so many dynamics associated with immigrant life, and how immigrants, specifically from certain places, see themselves as set apart from other immigrants. So like, it's very unlikely that, despite Priscilla Chan's parents escaping war in Vietnam and escaping potential persecution or whatever they were having to escape during the war, they don't see themselves the same as someone from Latin America trying to escape, drug cartels or whatever the case may be. They do not see themselves the same. They don't see themselves as in the same boat at all. And they see themselves as a higher level of human being than these other people. And they align their priorities and their morals with these evil white men. And I think this is one of the things where when Black women start talking about relationships with women of color, why it starts to feel strange. Because, like, while these two women are like big examples of this type of dynamic, it plays out in smaller scales as well. The whole model minority thing is a huge part of what these type of women, their thought process actually entails. They believe these sort of ideas that they are better than other people of color, whatever, women in general, that they played the game right. They aligned themselves on the right side of power, and that is all that really concerns them. And I think that despite the fact that they should be able to look at their own stories, their own family, their own lives, understand how terrorizing what is happening in the United States is. These women are as evil and heartless as the men in which they have aligned themselves with. It's just that simple. A lot of times Black women have trouble connecting with other women of color because of this dynamic, because they align themselves in the same way. They don't see themselves like us. They and I can't even say necessarily that say that they see themselves as white women, but they align with those values. And in some ways, I would imagine they think they're better than any other woman, regardless of ethnicity. I think that they would see themselves as better because they played the right cards. Priscilla Chan, whatever the case may be, looking at how even culturally, Asian cultures culturally have a lot of traditional ideologies. Even in Hindu culture, within Hinduism, there's a lot of people who still believe in the caste system. And I imagine that Usha Vance also believes in that sort of ideology of low, like a lower caste and a higher class. And I think she sees herself aligned with the higher caste system, and aligning herself with someone like JD Vance actually solidifies that ideology because of the level of power he's been able to accumulate. Despite the means in which he's been able to accumulate that power, doesn't matter, because a lot of people, and I think that what we see not just in these women but socially, when people align themselves with power, will they can justify in their minds and their hearts how you accumulate it, because they're right. If you and in fact, because even in Hinduism, because of karma and this whole ideology around karma, you get what you give. So if they are getting these rewards, these social rewards, it must be because they are on the right side. That is even something that I think she could use in her religious ideologies to justify this move these evil deeds that these men are in charge of pushing upon the rest of us. They don't want to see they truly don't want to see how them aligning themselves with what's happening in any other way than the power that it gives them in this world. And it's crazy because so many of us, like women, when we want to see women up in positions where they can influence things for other women, rarely do those women influence it for the betterment of women. It almost always is an influence in the direction that just aligns them with power. We already know from The Handmaid's Tale that this will be a short-lived situation if things continue to go in the direction in which they're going in this whole tech oligarchy dystopian like timeline that we seem to be pushing ourselves down. But this is why when we talk about women of color, Black women often look at other women of color with skepticism, because we know and we have seen how on small scales they will be fine to throw women under the bus if it means that gets them a little bit more power. A lot of times they won't align with other women of color, and they definitely will not align with Black women in the process of trying to push women's rights forward. So this splintered off like behaviors in women, and women who support patriarchy, and women who support evil men, and women who keep trying to attain their power through the support of patriarchy and through the support of evil men. They don't care about other women, period. We saw it in slavery. Even though those women who were wives of slave owners or whatever were often beaten, treated badly, while their husbands were out raping slaves and doing all of the dirty things that they were doing, that little glimpse of power they had in their home was the thing that they held on to. And like, this is the same model for these women. And when we talk about Black women and the whole dating out, of course, there's like the Candace Owens type people who want to align themselves with those women as well, but they're never quite accepted. You know, like I think Candace Owens was going through, someone found some pictures of her when she was younger and she had like a short, tight afro. And people start calling her trans, saying she looked like a boy and blah, 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 blah. The lepers always come back to eat your face. But again and again, these women who align themselves and having women, these men who have women, a validation for what they're doing, because if no woman would have them, if no woman would have them, it would automatically make it seem like they might not be good. You know, they might actually be evil. Women might actually not want to deal with this sort of like ideologies that these men have. But the fact that there are women who align with it, always shows that other women who look like them, if you aligned with this, you might be safe too. You know, like you could be behind this and it will feel like safety, because all of those other things, all the bad things that they're doing are happening to those bad women out there who do not have the alignment that you have. And that's what it keeps showing. We keep seeing this repetitive thing historically, this repetitive thing with women and this behavior, and particularly women when they start to use men to have some sort of power. And it's crazy that these women, particularly Usha Vance and Priscilla Chan, who are highly educated, who have so much to offer, literally stay silent behind the scenes, behind these men. They show up when they're supposed to show up, get the children and validate them, but they are so silent. And their silence it's so loud that people will start creating their own narratives for them. Like maybe they're being entrapped and blah, blah, blah. They're not. It's no difference in those white women and the trad wife lives that they're lying about. That's the thing that's crazy to me. They're all liars, because these men who are trying to take education and rights away from every woman that exists, these highly educated women, these women whose parents escaped impossible odds in their own countries, that come here and try and help their children get a better life, where they come to the point where they feel like they are so much better than any other minority that might be doing the same thing because they managed to align themselves with power. And that's all that really matters. And it's a frustration to watch women align themselves with evil men who want to hurt all women. But it's especially frustrating when you see brown women out here doing the same with even worse men. JD Vance is one of the worst human beings you could ever muster to look at. And I mean, and all of the things that they've been doing and saying, the Project 2025 and their plan to basically turn the United States back into, the 13 colonies. Because I don't even want to say Gilead, because it was already America when those things were happening in The Handmaid's Tale. They're trying to take it back to when all of those things that they were doing to people were were legal. And there are women who are ready to slide in down that path with them. And this is an example of brown women who also will align themselves with evil men because they think that will protect them in the end. Guys, I would love to hear from you in the comments, what your thoughts are. And if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel, and ciao ciao for now.